What if the dish you have ordered from a Chinese takeout menu your entire life was actually invented in America? What if Chinese food, as the world knows it, is one of the greatest origin story myths in culinary history? Today on Recipe Lab, we are breaking down 10 dishes you had absolutely no idea were not actually Chinese. In the 10th place, fortune cookies, the crunchy folded treats that cap off countless Chinese meals in America, are not Chinese at all. Their story begins around the 19-teens with Makoto Hagiwara, a Japanese immigrant and caretaker of San Francisco's Japanese tea garden. Inspired by Japanese temple crackers called Sujura Senbei, Hagiwara started serving these cookies with hidden fortunes to garden visitors. But the plot twists during World War II, when Japanese-American internment forced original bakeries to close, and Chinese restaurateurs stepped in, adopting the cookie as a house dessert. Today, nearly 3 billion fortune cookies are produced each year in the United States alone, with the world's largest factory churning them out in New York. The iconic Chinese fortune cookie is, in reality, a Japanese-American invention. It is proof that even the simplest dessert can be a passport stamped with migration and reinvention. Number 9. Chop suey, a dish so deeply woven into the American imagination of Chinese food that its name alone conjures red lanterns and dragon motifs. But in the late 1800s in New York, chop suey was pure survival, a catch-all stir-fry thrown together by Cantonese immigrants using scraps and leftovers, stretching every ingredient to feed hungry laborers and curious locals. The term comes from the Cantonese ti sap sui, meaning mixed bits, and it first appeared on New York menus in the 1890s, sparking a nationwide craze by 1900. Newspapers reported visiting Chinese dignitaries baffled by the dish, unable to recognize it from home. Chop suey wasn't imported from China. It was invented in America, a culinary improvisation that became a sensation and a symbol, all while never quite existing in the place it supposedly came from. 8th place. General Tso's chicken arrives not from Hunan, but from the restless imagination of Chef Peng Chong Kui, first in Taiwan, then on the neon-lit streets of New York in the 1970s. The original dish, created in exile, was sharp and fiery, a tribute to the legendary Qing general, but with none of the syrupy sweetness Americans now expect. When Peng landed in Manhattan, he listened to diners, swapped out searing chilies for a glossy, sugar-laden sauce, and deep-fried the chicken to a golden crunch. The debut at Shunli Palace in 1973 marked a turning point, a chef's adaptation, not a folk invention, that quickly eclipsed its own roots. Today, General Tso's is almost unknown in China, where returning tourists marvel and sometimes recoil at how sweet and sticky the American version has become. Number 7. Egg rolls. Those shatteringly crisp cylinders loaded with cabbage and pork owe more to the 1930s in New York than to any Chinese banquet hall. The American egg roll is not just a spring roll with a new name, it is a full-blown reinvention. Where traditional spring rolls use delicate rice paper and a light, fresh filling, the New York version bulks up with a thick wheat flour wrapper, engineered for deep frying and maximum crunch. Inside, the filling tips toward cabbage and bean sprouts, both cheap and easy to source during the Great Depression. Some credit a wave of creative Chinatown chefs for this transformation, with names like Lum Fong surfacing in oral histories. But the real invention was in the texture, portable, hearty, and perfect for the appetizer craze sweeping American restaurants. The egg roll became a handheld snack, a deep-fried answer to the question, how do you make Chinese food fit an American street corner? Number 6. Chow mein, 2 words that sound like a direct ticket to southern China, but in America, they lead somewhere else entirely. The literal Cantonese translation means stir-fried noodles, yet the dish most people recognize as a product of adaptation and necessity. In railroad camps and mining towns in the late 1800s, Chinese cooks swapped out delicate wheat noodles for whatever was on hand, piling on celery, onions, and bean sprouts, ingredients cheap, sturdy, and available year-round. The result split in two directions: soft noodles bathed in brown gravy for comfort, and crisp fried noodles for crunch. No place took this reinvention further than Butte, Montana. There, miners fueled up on a local specialty: gravy-laden chow mein thick with bean sprouts and celery, served in restaurants like the Pekin Noodle Parlor since 1911. The original Chinese version is almost unrecognizable next to Butte's hearty, Americanized plate. If this is changing the way you see your takeout menu, subscribe to Recipe Lab right now. Every dish has a secret, and we find them all. Number 5. Sweet and sour pork. A dish that glows with the promise of China, but was engineered to dazzle Western eyes and palates far from Canton. The original Cantonese version balanced vinegar's sharpness with a hint of sugar. But in 19th century immigrant restaurants from San Francisco to London, the formula shifted. Enter canned pineapple, suddenly cheap, shelf-stable, and a ticket to tropical novelty on the plate. The sauce turned neon orange, thickened with cornstarch, and sweetened to a sticky gloss that clings to battered pork like lacquer. Every element was chosen for impact: the fruit's bright acidity, the visual jolt of that artificial red, the syrupy tang calibrated for a generation raised on desserts. In China, pineapple was a rare luxury. In the diaspora, it became a symbol, proof that a little marketing psychology and a lot of canned fruit could turn a humble stir-fry into a global sensation. Number 4. Chili peppers, the fiery soul of Sichuan cuisine, are not native to China at all. Every mouth-numbing stir-fry and crimson oil slick owes its punch to a plant that crossed oceans. Chili peppers originated in the Americas and did not arrive in East Asia until the late 1500s, riding the waves of the Columbian Exchange. Portuguese traders ferried seeds from South America, and by the Ming and Qing dynasties, Chinese herbalists were recording their effects in medical texts. It was in Sichuan, centuries later, that chilies found their true home, overtaking native peppercorns and transforming the region's food into a global icon of heat. Today, China grows more chili peppers than any country on Earth, harvesting over 16 million tons a year. The backbone of authentic Chinese spice is, in fact, a New World migrant, proof that the ingredients we take for granted often have the most surprising passports. Coming to the top 3, dim sum conjures images of bamboo steamers, bustling carts, and endless small plates, but the version adored worldwide is a triumph of Hong Kong's mid-century imagination. The ritual began centuries earlier in Guangdong's tea houses, where yum cha meant a leisurely meal of steamed buns and dumplings. But it was in the 1950s and the 1960s in Hong Kong that the dim sum experience transformed. Restaurants rolled out trolley service, letting diners point to what looked good as carts wove between tables. This innovation turned dim sum into a lively, communal event, perfectly suited to the city's fast pace and international visitors. As Hong Kong chefs and restaurateurs emigrated, they exported not just recipes but the entire trolley ritual to Chinatowns, from San Francisco to Sydney. What most of the world now calls authentic dim sum is in fact a Hong Kong export, proof that tradition can be as much about invention as preservation. Number 2, fried rice stands as one of the oldest dishes on this list, with roots stretching back to China's Sui dynasty around 600 AD. In its earliest form, fried rice was a clever solution for using up leftovers, but over centuries, it became a showcase for the elusive wok hei, the breath of the wok. Achieving wok hei means tossing rice over searing flames, coaxing out a smoky aroma and a hint of char that signals true mastery. Yet, for all its ancient pedigree, fried rice is also a chameleon. In post-World War II Hawaii, the dish took a sharp turn. U.S. military supply chains flooded the islands with Spam, and local cooks began folding cubes of canned pork into their rice, creating a version now beloved across the Pacific. From classical Chinese cookbooks describing the thermodynamics of wok cooking to the lunch counters of Honolulu, fried rice proves that authenticity isn't a fixed point. It is a story of survival, adaptation, and endless remixing. And finally, in first place, Kung Pao chicken, a dish that tells two stories with one name. In Sichuan, Gong Baoji Ding is a punchy stir-fry of chicken, peanuts, and dried chilies, named for Ding Baozhen, a 19th century governor whose official title, Gong Bao, gave the dish its name. The original is a study in balance, savory soy, tingly Sichuan peppercorn, and just enough sugar to round out the heat. But in the United States, Kung Pao took a sharp turn. During the Cultural Revolution, anything linked to old elites was banned, and Ding's legacy vanished from public menus. When Chinese chefs arrived in America after the 1960s, they brought a memory of the dish, but found a new audience craving sweetness and crunch. Out went the numbing peppercorns, in came bell peppers and glossy sauces. Today, American Kung Pao is often more sweet than spicy, a far cry from its Sichuan ancestor. The same name, two recipes, one shaped by imperial China and political campaigns, the other by immigration and market demand. If authenticity means tracing a dish to its roots, then Kung Pao chicken is a living record of how roots can twist, break, and grow somewhere else entirely. In the end, the story of Chinese food isn't a straight line from past to present. It is a map of reinvention, shaped by politics, migration, and the messy beauty of survival. Across every dish, one truth emerges. Authenticity is a moving target. Migration, invention, and survival constantly reshape what we call Chinese food. The real story isn't purity, it's reinvention. Food history isn't a straight line. It's a beautiful, tangled map of adaptation and belonging. Thanks for watching.